All right. Well, welcome to the Robo Show. I'm your host, Robichaux, and I'm here today with an awesome guest. Super pumped to have him. Frank Mir, two-time UFC world champion, world heavyweight champion, sports commentator. Been out there also a lot lately, podcasting as podcast host. I'll let him talk more about his show and point you to it as we wrap up today. But I just want to catch up with them, find out what you're doing now, and I want to talk today a lot about with Frank about mindset, because I think Frank Mir and I share a lot about the mindset that fighters have to have and how they could apply it to everyday life. So what's up, Frank?
Hey, thanks, man. It's good talking to
you. So catch everybody up. What are you doing now? I mean, you know, big.
Well, right now, I've teamed up with John Wood over at Syndicate to be more part of the coaching staff. I'm still fighting MMA. I'm trying to get a fight, hopefully in June. Was talked to me, but you know how those things go. I just came off of my first pro boxing fight. I fought Steve Cunningham. I was happy about that. I mean, I lost a 6-round decision, but the guy's a 2-time world champion, cruiserweight. The guy was beating Tyson Fury in a boxing match, knocked him down, even was up on the scorecards until Tyson kind of hit him with a cheap elbow and an overhand right and won the fight. So the guy's that good. In fact, I had him come out afterwards to show me what I did wrong in the fight, what I can do better, you know? And so that's that. I'm just constantly always improving as a martial artist, a husband, a father, you know? That's kind of like I wake up every morning like, all right, I got to make myself better.
Yeah. You know, you talk about coaching and, you know, you and I think you and I are around the same age. I'm 45 and we're both, you know,
you're 42 here in like 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, now we're giving back a lot to others. You know, I just tied a black belt to my son, and, you know, we were talking before, you and your daughter is a fighter now.
Yeah. I wanted all my kids, like I'm sure you think the same way. I want my kids to be martial artists. But because of the mindset, the adversity that you can overcome, and the tools it gives you as a human being in your everyday life, you know, some people follow Zen, some people want to be Buddhist, some people are, you know, diehard Christians, Muslims, whatever the case may be. We're martial artists. That's my religion. And so I wanted my children to be martial artists, but I didn't want them to be professional fighters. And I think people have a hard time understanding that. But I'm like, hey, look, imagine Mariah Carey. I'm sure she wants her daughter to understand music because it's a part of her life. But everybody knows when you've made it to that level that there's a little bit of luck involved being a professional athlete, you know, not getting that injury, you know, meeting the right person at the right time, having a good night on the right night, you know. And so being a professional at something is scary. You know what I mean? Your kid tells you, hey, I'm thinking I'm going to forego college, or I'm just doing what I can just to, you know, just till I got this fight career going. And, you know, that's the same with acting, music, anything in the entertainment world. You're not really in control of your own destiny. There's a lot of other people that are factored in. So I never wanted my daughter to be a fighter. I pushed them in all different directions, you know. She trained jiu-jitsu at a very young age and then started going into wrestling. And I didn't realize I was laying the groundwork for her MMA career. She was really great at softball. We even in 7th grade, in 8th grade, she led the clubs in stolen bases and home runs, both, you know. So I was like, all right, cool. You know, maybe we'll go this route. College experience, it's great for you. You know what I mean? Like, I think college is bullshit as far as teaching you anything, but hanging out with another bunch of 18 to 22-year-olds, do something. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people miss that. Like, either go to the military or go to college, but find out so you can, you know, have a little adversity and learn about yourself. And then she started liking I blame Ronda Rousey, because I always told her, I was like, oh, Bella, girls, you know, Dana said there'll never be girls in the UFC. You're never going to make money at this. Let's go another route. And then lo and behold, Ronda came about, became probably the 2nd highest paid fighter of all time. So she looks at me and goes, Dad, I thought you said girls can't be fighters. I'm like, well, I was wrong. Yeah. So now, you know, she trains. We have her. She took 2 pro fights. And she's 2-0. The first fight, she fought a girl who was extremely tough. Bella ran her over for the first round or 2, and the girl was still fighting back in the 3rd. But, you know, the girl was a full-grown woman, 33 years old with 10, you know, fights already under her belt.
And how old's Bella?
Bella's 17.
Yeah.
And so Bella was in there. I mean, she even told me, she was, Dad, there was a moment because they should have stopped the fight at the end of the 2nd round. I mean, she's just blasting the girl from ground and pound. And they didn't stop the fight. So Bella basically went for a 45-second sprint after already fighting for 9 minutes. So she gets up and she walks to the corner, and I look at her. I'm like, hey, you know how you and I talk about mental toughness? Show me now. You know, it's one thing to talk about this in a comfortable air-conditioned room, but this is now when you prove to me that you're mentally tough, show me. And she got up and went out there and fought. And she says, yeah, Dad, like, I was questioning myself. And then I thought, should I be questioning myself? Like, does that mean I'm not mentally tough? I'm like, no. That means you pushed yourself so hard that you questioned yourself and you came back from the abyss. That means you are mentally tough. I hate when I talk to people who go, oh, I wouldn't quit. I'm all, if you've never quit, you've never been pushed hard enough. Because everybody I know, everybody I'm friends with that's a SEAL or any kind of, special forces, tier 1 operator, they've been pushed hard enough that they've questioned whether they want to do shit or not. You know what I mean? Like, they've had bad days, they've quit. And that's what makes them grow and come back. So I was very proud of her that in that moment, she, started to doubt herself and she pulled back from the abyss.
Yeah, you got to find your limits. And in addition to that, she's got the Mir blood running through her veins. So I'm not surprised where she's at. But no, you bring up exactly what I want to talk about. And that's, mindset. And, I was talking about special operations. I was Force Recon Marine. I did 8 deployments.
A good friend of mine was Force Recon. Yeah. Tough guys.
So, we, learn about the mindset, but I look back like this multiple facets of my life. The reason I believe I made it through my training to become a reconnaissance Marine was because I've been doing martial arts since I was 5 years old. And I learned, I've been, on the mats, wrestling, doing judo, jiu-jitsu since I was 5. So I learned how to win. I learned how to lose. I learned how to face my limits and push past them. And you learn so many things on those mats about, work ethic, character, discipline, all integrity, all these things. Yeah. And they can translate to your personal life. And for me, they applied to my training to become a reconnaissance Marine. And then later on, 8 times in Afghanistan, those attributes kind of merge together with the same kind of characteristics you get from being in the military and special operations. And, I'm 45 years old now, I'm still on the mat. You're still training and fighting. And I get out there in the mat. I train, every night I can during the week and get these young 20-year-old studs pushing me. And I feel that breaking point every day, but I push past it. And I'm still proud to say that I grind them out every night. So the old guy, I see him sitting on the wall. I'm like, hey, what are you sitting on the wall for? I'm the only one in here who should be sitting on the wall.
Well, they say, beware of an old man in a young man's world.
Right.
And exactly what you're talking about is what I try to preach as far as everybody. I'm like, hey, get into something, because this mindset that you're going to develop from being a martial artist and pushing yourself. Hell, I don't give a shit if it's CrossFit, marathon runner. Put something that makes you uncomfortable, where you have to test yourself, where you're going to some days lose. And you're going to have to go home and regroup and cry about it and get back in the morning and say, hey, how do I move forward? Let me read a book on this. Let me watch a podcast. Let me figure out somebody who's been here that can help me through this. If you're not doing that every day, then you're just wasting your life, in my opinion, because, we're built to be warriors. Humans conquered the world. Hey, polar bears are pretty dangerous, right? Scary animal. We put them in zoos. They sit in a cage and we feed them and we sit there and take pictures with them. That's what humans are. And anytime we try to deny that heritage, I feel like that's when we have issues. That's when you get the Columbine issues, where it's like, oh, zero violence. I'm like, so these kids can never express themselves in any way, but all of a sudden now you wonder why they go insane, because there was no conflict resolution. It was like, oh, just, turn the other cheek type attitude. Just, it has its limits, and so what you talk about, that mindset of a martial artist, is what I bestowed on all my children. That's the path I've tried to put them all on.
Yeah, I think we come to this point in our culture right now where young people are told to be, meek and passive, and we see that we see it blowing up with people rioting in the streets and they do protests because they really have lost their identity. I believe young people, and I know you have a daughter that's a warrior, but especially young men, need to understand how to be violent, how to be warriors, and then control that, being able to be in control of that. And that's,
be a monster and learn how to control it, right? Jordan Peterson said it best,
Exactly right. And competing in martial arts for me, and I don't know the same for you, but for me, when this is why I still compete. I did 20 pro MMA fights and I don't fight MMA anymore, but I still do jiu-jitsu and compete in jiu-jitsu. And I've had a real lucky year. I've won. I say lucky. I've worked hard to win a couple of big tournaments this year. But the reason I still, people ask why I still compete in jiu-jitsu. The reason why is when I put a date on the calendar, when I etch that number on that calendar, something clicks in my mind that I've become a more disciplined and regimented human being, in every area of my life, as a father, as a husband, you talk about like faith. I'm a strong person of faith. I'm a really strong Christian. I'm that radical Christian we talked about. Like my spiritual life even like comes in line. Like everything comes in line for me when I have that date on the calendar, because like I have to live a disciplined lifestyle to be successful. And so that's why I still compete. I got plenty of medals and stuff like that. I'm not even collecting those anymore. It's all, and I love winning, but it's about the discipline that comes from it. And I think there's a lot that the world could learn right now, especially this upside down culture right now. A lot the world could learn from martial artists and the way we live our lives as martial artists and as competitors.
No, I 100% agree with you. In fact, I give that advice all the time when people are like, I want to lose weight. I'm all, sign up for one of those Tough Mudders. What? I want to learn to be better at jiu-jitsu. I'm all, sign up for jiu-jitsu tournament. I put some skin in the game. I practice what I preach. I practice boxing probably about once a week, kickboxing another day, and then I do wrestling one day and jiu-jitsu twice a day as far as technical training. So it was probably about 6 months ago. I was like, you know what? I want to get better at boxing. You know what I mean? So then I told my manager, hey, give me a boxing fight. You know, and everybody's like, but you're not a boxer. You're more of a submission guy in MMA. But if I know that my ass is crawling into a boxing ring against a good boxer, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to train a lot of boxing. And that's what people saw back on April 17th. I stepped in there with a world champ and looked good. Well, that was because that was an accumulation of me putting that on the calendar, saying, hey, you know what? I want to get better at this, you know? And that's what I did. And speaking to you about the children, it got to the point of actually switched schools for my children. My kids went to a private school. I love the education there, and they had sporting programs there. But for the middle school, all of a sudden they have a teacher-parent meeting, and some of the parents don't like the fact that, you know, all this stuff coming out about concussions and football, and little Johnny can't play football now. But because little Johnny can't play football, it might hurt his feelings that my kids play football. They didn't let me make that decision for my children. So they cut the football team, dropped it. That was when I realized that, you know what, I can't be with you. We're different breeds of human beings, you know what I mean? And so then my wife kind of told me, she goes, hey, why don't you try to, you know, speak up and change this? You know, I'm like, no, I'm not going to. They've set their mindset. And guess what? Their children are going to compete against my children. I don't want to help. You know what I mean? Like, if that's how you're going to do it, that's fine. When it comes to an office presentation, my child is going to eat your child alive. Because the minute somebody makes him feel a little uncomfortable, they're going to go into the closet, call mom, go, man, they hurt my feelings. It's okay. They're not good. I mean, there's such a cuddling in our culture, and it's making us weak. And it just drives me insane. But then there's the dark side of my soul, the predator in me that goes, well, you know what? If your kid's going to be weak, that's just easier because he'll be fodder for my child.
Yeah, when it comes, they're going to be competing. They're not going to be competing in football tournament one day. They could be competing for a job one day, and
exactly,
how to put food in their the plates of their families. I mean, what you're talking about boxing. Right now, like we have, you know, I'm competing in pans coming at pan no gis, and that's my world. Like I'm really strong no gi in a tournament. I don't know who's going to be there, but I keep signing up for these super fights. So like I'm doing sub 100 pro, and I'm the matches I'm looking for in those super fights are guys that I think have the ability to beat me.
Exactly.
I just took a match with Bernardo Patel, who's a black belt world champion from Brazil, and I'm like, that guy in a gi is probably better than me, and that's why I took that match, because that drives me.
Yeah.
To want to train hard, and that's gonna motivate me, and you know, I think you take that in life, like do things that are hard.
Yes.
Make your kids do things that are hard. Make your kids do things where they're gonna fail, and teach them lesson of failure, because oftentimes as parents, and I think right now we talk about success, and you tell stories about success to your kids, but tell them stories about when you tried really hard and failed.
Oh, I talk about
how you got back up again. You know, I mean, and man, you're like you get your daughter Bella in wrestling. No better place to learn about winning and losing than wrestling. When 1,000 kids show up for a tournament, and 50% of them, the first round, they have a single elimination. First round, they go home. You know, by the second round, 75% of them have failed, you know, and you learn how to get back up and go at it again.
It just happened. Bella proved it again, her toughness, right? We're at the high school nationals. And so, or not high school, I think it's just nationals, because they have different age groups and stuff. But she's in the 18 and under group, so, you know, high school, right? So she pins her way to the finals. Well, the girl in her finals were there also pinned her way to the finals and was the Pan Am champ. She's already made a world team. The girl was good. In fact, the girl was so good that all the college coaches that were there recruiting and see, they voted for outstanding wrestler, right? Well, the other girl already had the vote tied up. All she had to do was beat my daughter, and she was the outstanding wrestler out of the 700 competitors that were there. Match starts off, Bella gets taken down. She shoots a shot, she rushes it. You know, she's in finals, so she kind of chokes a little bit. Shoots a bad shot, the girl gets in a decent position, scores 2 on a takedown, which actually, when I reviewed the film, it wasn't really 2, but hey, that's life. Sometimes it's unfair, and that's exactly what life's like, right? So Bella goes down. The girl turns her twice. Bella's never been turned in a wrestling match before. Bella had a bad shoulder. We taped it up. The girl, I don't know if she willingly did it or she's just super, you know, just by luck, but she attacked that shoulder and turned Bella. So into this first period, it's 8-0. She's on the biggest stage of her life right now for wrestling. Her coach is rightfully so kind of lit up, telling her, hey, you know, the girl wins the coin toss, defers to my daughter. My daughter, he tells her, you choose top and you pin this girl right now. Anybody knows about wrestling, that's kind of a scary proposition, because if you choose bottom, you get your escape, you get a takedown, there's 3 points right there, you're starting to cut the lead. By choosing top, if you don't turn them and they get away, now they're up another point, right? So I look over at my daughter and I can see that, you know, she's frustrated. Now he's got her fired up, so she's in kill mode. But I look at her, I'm like, hey, start over. And she knows, I've said that to her many times in training. Sometimes we lose in life and we stumble and we fall, we scrape our knee, we bust our nose. I tell people, hey, have a short memory. Get up, take what you can from your failure, but move forward. Don't sit here and mope about it, because it's the present right now. The past is the past. So she looks at me and I can see her after I say that, hey, because I'm standing right to the side, I go, start over. So she takes a deep breath, goes out there and pins the girl in 25 seconds. Wins the national championship, becomes the outstanding wrestler, turns it around. That's what mental toughness will do for you. She's an extremely talented athlete, but it failed her that day. But what kept her in that game was her mindset.
Yeah. With mindset, you know, you have fought at the most difficult place that I think any combat sports athlete could compete at. You fought for the UFC Heavyweight Championship twice. I don't know.
Won it twice.
You won it twice, yeah. So you had more title fights than that.
Yeah,
you won it twice. What's that? You know, what's that like? What's some of your favorite memories and takeaways from that moment? You know, walking out to that octagon for that ultimate, you know, combat.
You know what? It's scary, because I think, and I try not to do this now that I've gotten older, because I realized with wisdom that a performance doesn't define me as a human being. But when I was younger, and I think like most young men and women, we define ourselves by our performance. We define ourselves by not the fact that I didn't skip a single training session for the last 90 days, that I did all the hard work. Like, that defines you as a man, and then you show up and you perform. But if I go out there and have a bad result, I feel like, well, that just means I suck. I'm a horrible human being. I'm a failure. So that was always hard for me. When the first time I won the title, that was my mindset. Then after that, I actually loosened up a little bit for the second time I won the championship, because I realized that life's not always about shiny medals and awards and belts. And yeah, those are nice and they're indications of success, but it's always about the journey, you know, and then enjoy the journey. So when I walked out, I remember the second time I won the title, I'm fighting Nogueira. And I was a big fan of his, you know, obviously he was one of the first heavyweight that actually fought jiu-jitsu and had a guard. And, you know, and could fight off his back. Most big guys, the minute you put them on their back, they're, you know, like a turtle, you know. Good boxer, you know, he was ranked #1 in the world, #2 in the world, you know, between him and Fedor, back and forth all the time. And so, you know, no one really gave me much of a chance to win the fight. So I remember when I went out there, I watched him. I remember in my head just so loose and relaxed as we were backstage at the MGM, and he was stationed at one area, didn't make his walk, and I obviously was in another area. He was behind me. I had to walk first. And I just remember just sitting there, and he's shadow boxing and warming up, and I'm like, you have no idea what's about to happen to you. Like, it was almost kind of, I felt like a hunting dog staring at the, you know, the sheep, going like, you have no idea what you're about to get into. You know what I mean? Like, you have no chance. I'm going to eat you alive, you know? And just that confidence of just, I've put in the hard work. I know what I've done. I know what I'm capable of. And if we're both at our best, you can't beat me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, you know, so many times that I feel like, you know, that mindset has changed. That mindset, when I've had that, has just totally changed my performance.
Yes.
I did.
Yeah, it's better, because when you doubt yourself, it's almost kind of like, you know, I know it's corny, but that whole, like, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right, you know? Yeah, and that's very true. That's a great thing, yeah. It's true. You know what I mean? Like, when you doubt yourself, you don't perform well, you know? it's killed me a lot of times, some of my fights, because I tell people I'm cursed with intelligence. We sometimes, when you're an analytical person, you overthink things. And people are like, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Well, if I'd have done this, he'd have done that. I'm like, dude, now I've realized, like I told my wife one time, we were watching a fight and I didn't do nothing for 30 seconds. She goes, like, are you just stalling? I'm like, no, babe. Like 5 wars went off in my head. Like if I told you exactly everything was going through my mind at that moment, I wasn't even there. I was off in like, warrior world, working things out. And well, if I do this, you're going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to fake this. What are they doing here? And it was too much analyzing, and that's hurt me. Sometimes you just have to, get into your id and just move, react, and respond. Yeah,
for sure. One of the things that I've always really preached is that you really have like a strategy. You have to be able to improvise, but I always have a strategy for my fights. I have what I call a perfect match. Here's the perfect match for me, from A to B with my hands raised, and then
it's the same. Plan A, Plan B, Plan C. And then Plan D is like we don't know what the hell's happening.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm always trying to work back towards those plans. Like if I get off course, then if I'm mounted, like, well, I need to get back to my game and bring myself back, no matter what's going on around me. And that's the same thing.
You and I have the same mindset in that. I think the way I say it is like, hey, I don't attach myself emotionally to situations. They're just math equations. Yeah. If I'm mounted, I have no more emotional response if I mount you. I don't, like if you were on my heart rate measure, I don't sit to go, yes, I got the mount, or I'm mounted. It doesn't matter. It's like, oh, I'm mounted. I need to push the knee, get my hip out. Okay, no, I'm going to go single X now. Boom, got him. I got the heel. If I'm mounted, I'm like, okay, hips down, ankles crossed. Oh, I'm going to start working the arm up, go from my head. You know what I mean? They're just equations, tactics.
Problem solving.
Problem solving. That's all you're doing. You're problem solving. If you think more into it, it slows you down. If you're like, oh, man. And also, too, it can fatigue you. You sit there, oh, I'm mounted. Vice versa. Oh, I mounted you. I'm in a great position. And then you get rolled. You're like, oh, no. I'm like, no, they're just your problem solving.
Yeah, that's right. Composure's the key to that. And, so one of the things, you talked a lot about your daughter, which Bella's awesome. So I had thought about this topic with you before because I heard you speak.
My son just studs too. My older son, the middle one, he just won nationals. Well, no, he just won nationals for 14U football. They went down to Florida. His Vegas Strong team were the #1 in the country for that age group. And so, basically middle school down, because he's going to be a freshman next year in high school. And already, he trains hard, runs hard, does good schoolwork. He's benching 300 pounds right now. I put it up on my Instagram.
How big is he?
210.
Jeez.
Yeah, he'll be about 240, I'm sure, in high school. But, genetically, I am gifted and cursed at the same time. I deadlifted 500 pounds my sophomore year of high school. You know what I mean? Like, I've always been, my PR in the 100 was an 11.6. I weighed 245 pounds. I ran in the 12s easily all the time. That's moving for a big guy. You know what I mean? Like, I outran people all the time, right? And so even now, people, when I box, I'm 275 pounds. I boxed a 205-pound lightning bolt and still was landing shots, Yeah. But the problem is that because I was gifted so much physically as an athlete, it handicapped me mentally. If you watch the first part of my UFC career, I was very mentally weak. I was like a lion. If I got on top of you, I was dangerous. You put me on my back, I ran. I got scared. You know what I mean? Not physically put me on my back because I played guard, but just that whole mental, if I got on my heels.
Yeah.
What's that?
They just have you on your heels.
Hey, if someone fought back and they didn't go away, I folded because I'm like, hey, what's this? What's going on? Because I was used to dominating everything. And then all of a sudden people fought back when I got to the higher level. It scared me. And it took those ass whoopings and those embarrassing moments for me to sit there and go, wow, that's disgusting. I can't sleep right now. I don't want to be that guy anymore. And that's what was the start of first identifying I'm a little bit of a you know what I mean? Like, I better fix this. And then I started researching on how to fix it. Like, well, let me start figuring out mental toughness. How can I move forward with this? Because this is horrible. I don't want to be this kind of man.
Yeah. As a coach, and I just competitor, because I'm a little guy, fought flyweight, bantamweight. And
which is actually an advantage when it comes to mental toughness, because you're not walking to the gym on your first day smashing everybody because you don't have the physical attributes to do that. So sometimes not being a good athlete is actually a blessing when it comes to the big picture.
This episode of the Robo Show is brought to you by iron-neck.com. IronDashNeck.com. Iron Neck is the world's #1 neck strengthening device. You guys don't know, in 2006, I was in Afghanistan and broke my neck. And if you want to read about that story, a crazy story of how I broke my neck, it's in my book, And Unfair Advantage. You can go and check it out. But coming back from Afghanistan, after that's when I had all my big MMA fights, and my neck, and the VA wanted to do fusion, and I refused to do fusion, and I just opted to just strengthen my neck, keep my neck strong. So since, man, all these years fighting through all my fights in MMA and jiu-jitsu, I've always been very important that I keep the muscles of my neck strong, because the bones in my neck are broken off, and so I don't have that stability. And so neck strengthening has always been a very important thing to me. I've always just improvised ways to do it, using body weight, using different kind of improvised things that I'd make up. But now I don't have to do that anymore, because I have an Iron Neck device, which helps me to not only strengthen my neck, but do it in a safe way. The way the device works is it's on a rotator, so as you move your neck, the point of where the tension is actually moves around your head. And so super effective and safe way to strengthen your neck. And whether you have a neck injury or not, I think in sports or just in life, it's really important to have a good, strong neck. If your neck's strong, your hips are strong, your body's going to be strong. And so check it out, IronDashNeck.com. If you enter promo code Robichaux, Robichaux, my last name, you'll get 10% off. And I'm really doing this because I love it myself, and I want everybody out there, especially those with bad necks, to be able to take care of themselves. And so I really thought it was a great product to push out and partner with. And these guys are pretty awesome. They're a Texas-based company. IronDashNeck.com. You got to persevere to stay in the sport. Then I always, when I train guys, like big guys like your size, I'm like, let me teach you little guy jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
If you're a guy like your size and can do little guy jiu-jitsu, you're just a monster. So one of the things I want to talk about is, because I heard you talk about this before, and now, kind of emphasizing on your daughter. You're outspoken on this. I have strong feelings about this. Is these transgender athletes competing in girls' sports, taking away college scholarships, from our daughters. I mean, not, they got the safety aspect, but then you got the aspect, again, like your daughter's going to go, if she goes to college, maybe she loses a wrestling scholarship to some dude that didn't want to talk to us about that.
Yeah, you know what? I can't believe this is, like sometimes, straw man argument, like, hey, I'm going to pose an argument here that, just is purposely easy to win. And don't even jump on it, because I'm using a straw man tactic. This almost seems like that, like, okay, well, you're not really going to jump on me here, because there's no way anybody could argue that this is acceptable, and that a man can now claim to be a woman. And some of the standards are just really vague, where it's like, well, as long as they identify, I'm like, wait, so pre-surgery, no hormonal treatment, just a man who just inside. And look, do I feel that all Americans of 18 years of age should have voting rights, the ability to get married, do whatever they want to do with another consenting adult who's of age? Yeah, man, I don't want to take rights away from anybody. I'm not. But at the same time, if I decided I wanted to be a female athlete and go to the Olympics, you don't think I'm going to set every record that was ever set in weightlifting? And I'm not even that great of a weightlifter on the men's side. I'm like, there's no chance I even make the team. It's just crazy to me that this is even a situation. It was in the Northeast. I can't remember the state right now, because it's in my notes when I have these arguments with people. 2 track athletes that now identify as females have won 17 records they've set. Like, it makes no sense to me that, like, look, you can't fight biology. If you want to say, hey, you know what I mean? Like, I feel this way in my head. Cool. That's what you want to do. You want to show up to practice wearing a purple dress, show up to practice wearing a purple dress. I'm still going to roll with you. I don't give a shit. Yeah. But all of a sudden you show up to a jiu-jitsu tournament, you're like, I'm a girl and I want to identify. I'm like, well, shit, I'm a lightweight. I want to identify as 155 pounds. I feel that if you watch me move, I'm really a little guy stuck in a big guy's body.
Me as a lightweight, I don't want you in my division.
right? But that's what you're saying. You're like, I'm going to say that I'm this, and because I believe it, you have to believe it and play along also. And it's like, I mean, to a point, you're right. I will. You want to get married, do whatever, go ahead, man. But
that's America. People have the freedoms to do those things, but you can't impose them.
But now your freedoms are impinging on my freedoms. I mean, that's when I have a problem with them. Like, so now we only have so many scholarships for male and female. So now people that used to be male have to get the female. I'm not saying they can't compete, but they got to compete with the dudes. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, it makes all the sense in the world to me. It's like, why is this even an argument? Like, go compete with the men. You know what I mean? Like, you are an XY chromosome. Compete with XY. You know what I mean? Like, you can't compete with the double X. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where the feminists are on this issue, and who are the people that are standing up for these young women in our country. I mean,
yeah, that blows my mind too.
Yeah.
You would think that the feminists would go, hey, so wait a minute. So you're okay with a man that now identifies as a woman punching a woman in the face just because she identifies? I mean, you imagine I get in a fight with my wife, the cops show up, I'm like, hey, this is a wife-on-wife fight. I identify as a woman. You're like, what? This isn't male abuse on a woman, You're like, you're a 275-pound professional fighter, but I'm a woman. You know what I mean? Like, what sense does that make, Yeah,
it is that straw man argument, but unfortunately, it's crazy to me that it is argument.
I can't believe that we're even having this discussion. And I think it's just because of cancel culture. Everybody is so worried about if I say the wrong thing. I mean, hell, that's why through my Twitter and my Instagram, my business partner, Galen, he runs it for me. So, because I'll text him up like, hey, man, I want to say this. I want to say that. And, he gives me the text back. He goes, all right, you always can do what you want to do, but you got to think of this. I'm like, you're right. All right, stop. So I keep myself a barrier because, but certain arguments I feel are just ridiculous. And this is one of them where I'm like, I mean, come on, we can sit with a doctor, general practitioner, and say, hey, once a boy goes through puberty, no, there's a good example. My son, Cage, is 15 years old. My daughter is 17. My daughter is a 1% of the 1% of the 1% female athletes. She kicks the shit out of all the guys, most of them on the mat, plus definitely all the women, right? She benches 190 right now. That's her max. And she's been working out longer than Cage has. My son, he hit puberty, and all of a sudden he went from benching 185 when he was, 12, that now he's hitting 300 pounds on a bench press. Right. So you're telling me that all of a sudden he identifies as a girl, whatever treatment we try to do, it's going to take all that away from him. He's going to start at zero, and it's going to be an equal match between him and my daughter? Never can be. And the other crazy thing that I can't believe is that the argument of like, well, then if we do hormonal blockers before they hit puberty, would you allow that? I'm all, no. You can't do that to a child. You can't let some kid make that kind of life-altering decision when they're 12. Are you
serious? Buy a pack of cigarettes, but they could.
Yeah. If I right now let my 11-year-old get a tattoo on his face because he identifies, he likes the Maori culture now, and he identifies with that, and it inspires him, I would probably be investigated by Child Protective Services. I should be. They'd be like, yo, you let your 11-year-old get tattooed on the face? I think most people would be like, dude, what kind of parent are you, right? Yeah. Like, you let an 11-year-old make that kind of life-altering decision where, like, hey, once you're an adult, do stupid shit, but as a child, I got to try to protect you as much as you can from any bad decisions, and if you want to make that decision when you're 18, make that decision. Right. But now we're saying, oh, you can choose whether you're a boy or a girl at 12 years of age. Jamal, I was really stupid until I was in my, mid-30s. You're telling me a 12-year-old knows what the hell he's talking about? Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. People they make this political issue like I don't think it's a right or left, conservative or liberal, or And I got a guy that protects me too. He's listening right now, Michael. And Michael, he screens a lot of my stuff. He screens a lot of my stuff to keep me out of trouble, but because I have a strong opinion on this stuff. But this is the issue that I don't think is a divisive issue. This is the issue of when I speak about it, it's me standing up for these young girls. And you talk about it's standing up for these young girls. And, these good young girls, like athletes like your daughter, worked their whole life, worked so hard. And it becomes time for them to go to college. They should be able to earn that scholarship fair and square, or compete safely without having to worry about some, dude injuring them. This Fallon Fox thing. I remember when she was in there cracking ladies in the face. It's just not.
She broke like 2 different orbital bones. And here, anytime someone goes, oh, well, they'll take away all the advantages. I'm all, do you know why in sports, the drug tests, they do random drug tests now? Because back in the day when there was unions and football and stuff, they used to call it the steroid retreat. Because a lot of these guys, not a lot, I don't want to say that,
Right.
The athletes that abuse the system, what they would do is like, oh, I know I'm getting drug tested from August till January. So January hit, and all of a sudden they would do a cycle. They would get on drugs and build up their strength. And then when camp would start, they would clean them out of their system. They would gain all this strength and power and added muscle, and then they would be off of drugs and coast into the season. Yeah. Do you think they did that because they lost everything that they were doing? It's because that there was an advantage to building up and then getting off. And that's what happens with a boy when he hits puberty. We change and we become drastically superior when it comes to physicality with a woman. So to put a woman in the situation where she has to now compete for scholarships, for money, and now, bash her dreams, she should compete against other women on a fair playing field. If you guys don't think that that's what we should do, then why don't we just allow drugs in the system? Because we don't want an unfair advantage, right? And so, but now you're giving an unfair advantage to a different athlete. That's why I just think that it's such like I would think a non-starter as far as an argument, but I can't believe this is actually politicized.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I could kind of continue on with this.
Yeah, right.
So tell everybody like where they could follow. I mean, everybody knows where to follow you, Frank Mir, on all social media, but what you got going on and how people can tune into your podcast and things like that.
Yeah, and I also do Facebook Live where I sit on my phone for a little bit and talk, trying to get better at it, just because of my busy schedule with everything, sitting down and being, selfish. Usually when I'm sitting, I try to spend time with the wife and kids, But I also do phone booth fighting with Richard Hunter, who, he and I have some interesting conversations and whatnot. And so, check that out if you want to hear from me. And then, at the Frank Mir at all my different social medias. And then I'm actually starting a TikTok now. I finally figured what that was out like about 2 months ago. It took me a little while.
You're not doing the dances, are you?
You know what? I like that shuffle dancing. I'm actually a big fan. I actually hurt my hamstring and I actually use the word, effing TikTok, because I've been watching all these different guys' workout videos, right? Because there's great jiu-jitsu and wrestling and boxing videos on there and weight training. So I did they're called Nordic Curls, where, you get on your knees, someone sits on your ankles, and you lower your hips and chest to the ground and come up. So I saw people failing it. Well, this Saturday, I was busting them out. I did 3 sets of 5. I'm like, oh, this is easy. Next day I woke up, felt like someone stabbed me in the back of the hamstring. I'm like, what the hell? So I went to the doctor. He goes, oh, you got a grade 1 tear in your hamstring. I'm like, oh, man. He goes, well, what were you doing? I'm all, TikTok.
Those things are tough.
Yeah, man, those are really rough. I liked it. So I'm going to get a power band behind me so I can build up again.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on.
Awesome. That was great having me, man. It was a great conversation. Let's do this again. Seriously. Maybe we'll have you on the phone with fighting. We can talk on that.
Let's do it, bro. Let's do it.
All right, awesome.
All right. Thanks, man.